time for a no-holds-barred sniping contest between the old Marines and the new Marines. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy-focused 40k channel, where we're all about getting the most out of your units on the tabletop. Today we're going to be doing a bit more math hammer and weighing up some of the other pros and cons between the Eliminators and the Scout Snipers, the two primary sniper options that we have in the Space Marine Codex. In this video we're going to have a quick look at how the two units perform when they're targeting different characters that they might want to hunt, and talk about some of the other benefits and drawbacks when taking the squad. We'll be comparing a unit of 3 Primaris Eliminators with bolt sniper rifles for 72 points, compared with a Scout Sniper squad with sniper rifles and no camo cloaks, which clocks in at 78 points. Both units share a ton of similarities. They both have 36-inch range war gear that can target characters, and they can both set up outside of their deployment zone, so I think they were quite a good pick to compare like for like. So without further ado, let's take a look at how they'll perform when these two units draw a bead on the enemy high command. So for our first comparison, we'll be looking at them both in Devastator doctrine. So those sniper rifles will be at AP-1 and the bolt snipers will be at AP-3. We'll be assuming they don't have any other buffs or rerolls. The Eliminators will be firing mortis rounds, and as always we'll be making use of the Sergeant's guided aim ability to fire just 2 shots, but with a +1 to hit and wound. The targets I've chosen to look at is a toughness 3 5-up save Astra Militarum platoon commander, so no invul save, a Space Marine librarian with toughness 4 and a 3-up save, a smash captain bearing a storm shield, so he's toughness 4 and a 3-up invul save, and then a vehicle. Say if we didn't have any good line of sight or range on characters, we'll just plough a few shots into some tanks. As you can see from these numbers, it's pretty much a whitewash for the Eliminators. The numbers are quite close on the Astra Militarum platoon commander, as the sniper rifle's low strength won't really matter against such targets. The Eliminators are comfortably ahead against the Space Marine librarian, but only very slightly ahead over the smash captain, due to their AP not really counting for anything when you're shooting at an invul save. Finally, against the vehicle, as we've already seen from my previous anti-tank Primaris contest video, Eliminators with bolt rifles are surprisingly good at taking out armoured targets, so they win comfortably against this target too. Moving on, we'll take a look at tactical doctrine. Say if you're playing Ultramarines or Salamanders or something, but you still wanted to include these units in your list. This doesn't actually make a ton of difference to the results, though the Sniper Scouts do feel this a little bit more, because going from AP-1 to AP-0 is a bit of a bigger jump than going from AP-3 to AP-2 in terms of how many saves your opponent is going to make. Finally, I thought we'd take a quick look at the Raven Guard's tactical doctrine, which is an important one, as this will give you +1 to hit and wound against characters, so exactly the sort of thing that you want up if you're using these units. Because of the +1 to hit and wound, the Eliminators will just fire their shots normally rather than using guided aim for these ones. As we can see, it makes really quite a big difference in terms of damage output. Both squads are enormously more effective with this rule, besides against the vehicle, which obviously isn't a character. The gap's really quite narrow on the Astra Militarum platoon commander, but whether you shoot Eliminators or the Sniper Scouts at him, he's probably going to be dead either way. There's still a decent divide on the Space Marine librarian, but interestingly enough, when you target the Space Marine smash captain with the storm shield, those extra mortal wounds that you get from the Sniper Scouts compared with the Eliminators really does push them through the roof, and we finally get a victory for the 6 Sniper Scouts. So in Raven Guard lists, Sniper Scouts are a fair bit closer in terms of damage output to those Eliminators, and they do actually beat them out against high invul save targets. Now let's take a look at the other benefits and drawbacks of these two units, as of course in the game of 40k it isn't just about how much you can shoot. Bear in mind that those comparisons were done using a 72 point of Eliminators against a 78 point unit of Scouts, so that would further skew the math in the favour of the Eliminators. Firstly, we'll look at durability. The Eliminators are generally going to be more durable against any damage-borne weapons or any weapons that are AP-1. This is because they have essentially a 1-up save in cover, due to that camo cloak giving them +2 to their saving throw, so it means that a -1 AP modifier won't actually cause them to be failing on any worse. They'll still only fail on a roll of 1. So even damage 2 weapons are better against Sniper Scouts than the Eliminators, provided they're still only AP-1. The Sniper Scouts are more durable point for point against heavy anti-tank weapons, however, things with good AP and multiple damage. Aside from this, the Eliminators have a few other advantages. Firstly, we only talked about their Mortis rounds, which I think are the best, but don't forget they have the option for rounds that ignore lines of sight, or can potentially do a little bit more damage against hordes if they need them. I'd still personally be using Mortis rounds most of the time, but it's important to remember that they exist, particularly for targets that are cowering out of line of sight and maybe only have a wound or two left. The Eliminators have some good synergy with some of the Codex chapter traits, namely Master Artisans or Salamanders rerolls will be more valuable on Eliminators because they have fewer higher strength weapon shots, and they also are bolt weapons, which means that they'll get extra hits on 6s for Imperial and Crimson Fists. Finally, there are some stratagems such as Gene Wrought Might that are Primaris Space Marine only, and they also have the Phobos keyword, which lets them take advantage of some of the Vanguard Warlord traits or Phobos Librarian powers, which are options to them but not the Scouts. I don't think that this is the most important reason to take them by any means, but it is one other tactical option. If we move on to the Scouts now, I'd say the main benefit that they have over the Eliminators is that they fill a troop slot. This is important for getting those all-important battalions to get more command points to use all of the fancy tricks that the Space Marines have to offer. So it is a significant advantage in my mind. Because they're troops, they'll also have the Objective Secured special rule, Defenders of Humanity, which may come into handy from time to time. Scouts have the option of taking a missile launcher or a heavy bolter, which if you take it will obviously reduce their efficiency as snipers, but could let you contribute to the battle in another way. In particular, a missile launcher could be great if you're using Master Artisans or the Salamanders trait to reroll that hit and wound roll. Finally, the Scout squads will have slightly more attacks in melee due to shock assault if you compare the two units point for point. So overall, I mainly prefer the Eliminators over the Sniper Scouts for the role of sniping. Even in a Raven Guard list, they do seem to win out against almost all targets. The main reason I'd be tempted to use Sniper Scouts would be if it makes the difference between me filling up a battalion or not, or if it was more of a question of access to the models, if I owned the Scouts but didn't own the Eliminators. That being said, with all the buffs that Space Marines have just got, both units are now better than ever, and they're both far more viable than they were before the Codex dropped. If you've got any opinions yourself on the contest between these two, please let me know down in the comments. Feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to hear more like this, or to support me on Patreon if you're finding my content useful to you. Again, thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.